In this video, I'm going to show you how to disable a form submit button unless a specific radio button has been selected. Obtaining the selected value from a radio button group in standard JavaScript is a rather cumbersome process. It's much simpler in jQuery. Now, I've already started my jQuery script in this page. I've got a reference to the submit button, which I've stored in the variable button. And then I've used the jQuery attr method to disable the submit button when the form is loaded. So I need to get a reference to the radio button group. Very often when you're getting a reference to elements in jQuery, you'll use the ID, but you can't use the ID in this case because the ID of the first radio button in the group is agreeTerms 0 and of the second one is agreeTerms 1. That's because you can only use an ID once on a page. So the way to get a reference to a radio button group is to use an attribute selector using its name, because the radio button group uses the same name in each button. So let's create a jQuery object that references the radio button group. It's the input tag followed by a name attribute with the value agreeTerms. And I need to add a change event handler to that, so period and then change. And I'm going to select the third option down here so that Dreamweaver inserts automatically an anonymous function for me. Inside the anonymous function, I need to create a conditional statement that checks what the value of the selected radio button is. So if, and then to get a reference to the radio button, I'm going to use the this keyword, but wrap it in a jQuery object. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to use the jQuery val method to get the value of the selected radio button. And the this keyword gets you the target of the change event. In other words, the radio button that has been selected. If you just use the this keyword on its own, you can't apply jQuery methods to it. And the way of getting the value is just so incredibly simple in jQuery. That's it. That will get me the value of the selected radio button. So I need to compare it with the value that I want, which is yes. And then create a code block for the code that you want to be executed if the selected radio button is yes. And so I want to remove the disabled attribute from the submit button, and the submit button is stored in the button variable. So remove attr, and it's the disabled attribute that I want to remove. And I need to add an else clause, because if it's not yes, I want the submit button to remain disabled. And then just close that else clause, and that's the script complete. So save it, go into live view. You can see that the submit button has been disabled by this line of code here when the page loads. If I click the I agree to license, the submit button has now become live. And if I click this one, I do not agree, it's disabled again. So to recap, to get a reference to a radio button group, use an attribute selector that looks for the group's name. And the JavaScript this keyword gives you a reference to the target of an event, but you need to wrap it in a jQuery object in order to use it with other jQuery methods such as val. And val gives you the value of the selected object.